Sverker Holmgreen från Nordforsk, varsågod.
Ja, och som ni hör så är jag svensk. Jag undrar om jag ska hålla min presentation på engelska. Är det okej det, eller vill ni höra den på svenska? Engelska, ja. Jag misstänker det. När jag kommer upp i varv då kommer ni inte att förstå min svenska. So, English. I am working at Nordforsk part-time, which is the Nordic funding policy agency in Oslo. And I also work part-time as a researcher at Uppsala University. And I will talk about open access, open science. More or less everything what I'm going to say has actually been said in one way or another here. So maybe it will be a little bit like a summary and also an introduction to the panel discussion later. And there I hope I will be able to take part in Swedish in the discussion. I will say something about what this now is, open science, open access, why, and give some examples. Maybe that is the most important part. So I will give some examples from other Nordic countries and also say something about Europe. There has been a lot of discussion about open access to data already. And that is actually the area where I think I find most interesting. So I will be happy to discuss that more later. But I will focus a bit on open access to publications in this presentation. So, I'm very happy that the discussion now has been general in the sense that there has been talking about open access to many things. So publications, data, software and tools. You mentioned this parser tool that was used in language technology. Educational resources has been mentioned. Infrastructures, if you have measurements or you have other types of infrastructures. And all of this is now, today, I think, often lumped together under the term of open science. And this is now the term that is also used in Europe and by the European Commission. It was Science 2.0 a while, but now it's open science. And the idea here is to really have optimal sharing of all types of research results. And also then, of course, optimal reuse of them. And this should be across institutions, across disciplines, and across national boundaries. So it's a way of using the global research community. And that has been discussed already by the other presenters. Then, of course, the question is why, and that has also been discussed. So one main reason is, of course, that if you're spending public funding on doing research, you should be able to use that public funding in the best possible way. So as a taxpayer, you want your money to be used in the most efficient way. And of course, this is within and between research communities, but also outside research. So this is now a big sort of discussion, both within the EU and in the other Nordic countries. How do you make sure that research is actually being used in, well, commercial products, yes, but also in other parts of society, healthcare, elderly care, all of that. So that is one reason for actually making the availability and the use of research results better. Another main reason, often used by researchers themselves, is that you want your research to be reproducible. That's sort of the core of research. And you want to be able to check if a researcher has made some error or actually has tried to cheat you. And if you can access the underlying data and the underlying material for a publication, for example, you will be able to check this yourself. So that's also a main reason. A third reason, which I think is now being documented and actually validated, is that if you publish your research results, your research material, your data in a good way, you as yourself as an individual researcher will gain from this. You will get more citations, you will get more awareness of your research, you will be invited to conferences, etc. So this is really the reason why different entities are discussing open science. I have some quotes here, and this comes from a meeting 1 week ago in the European Parliament. So this was a meeting where there was a discussion on open science, and I think I will read this. They come from John Wood, who is the Secretary General of the Association of the Commonwealth Universities. He has now that as a main position. He was earlier the chair of the European high-level group on scientific data, and he wrote a famous report on that. He is the chair of the European Research Area Board. So this is a person that has been in this game for a long, long time. And he says, for the first thing, he says, open science is happening and there is no way of stopping it because it is bottom-up. That means that researchers are doing this. It's not politicians that are sort of telling researchers what to do. It's the researchers themselves. And then he says one other thing, which I think is interesting in the context of the conference tomorrow also. The development is going to be one of the fastest to be seen and one of the very few fast ways to create jobs. It will influence the society in new unseen ways by empowerment of citizens, bringing democracy to a new level and enhancing social cohesion. And of course, this is now something that is said in European Parliament in the meeting there, so it's directed to politicians, but there is some truth here, I think. So if you, for example, have research data available on the web, you don't know who will use it for what benefits. You might have a person sitting somewhere suddenly figuring out that this geological data, whatever, can be used for some tool that can be of use for some specific group in society. And you don't know that beforehand. So this is what he claims. And again, this is a speech for politicians, but I think it is important to actually think about this. Researchers, we still have some doubts here, and we heard the doubts already, I think. So first of all, it's like this sort of reptile conclusion that these results are mine. Nobody should tamper with those. We've also heard that, well, my findings might be discredited if I share the results data software instrument. That's something what you sort of indicated could happen. And of course, this is true. What you can do then is to try to document your data in the best possible way so that you have metadata that is really up to date, for example. You cannot trust others' results. That's the other side of that coin. And that is perhaps also somewhat true, but you have to figure out then what this data are really about. The two bottom points are really, I think, quite important. So if I am a researcher, what's in it for me? Well, I already said that today we can see that if you publish open access, whatever results you actually gain from it, that's being validated. But the final point, I don't have the resources needed to share. That's perfectly valid, because this costs money somehow. So if you're going to present your data on the web openly with proper documentation, etc., that requires an effort. And this will cost something. And you mentioned the cost of publishing. I mean, of course it goes down if you publish on the web, but still there is a cost of publishing material. So maybe the research funding system has to adjust to this new world, and that is happening. Something about publications. So this open access mode of publishing material is now being accepted. It is there. I would say that it's almost a fact today that what you do is that you publish open access. It's mandated to publish open access by many institutions, and it's recommended by many more. There is an ongoing debate about the costs and funding models, and we have already sort of talked a little bit about this. Who will pay the funding of this publication that we discussed? And one important thing also is that the coupling to access to research data is now being established. So, for example, in projects like EUDAT in open air and also Pasteur for open access in Europe. There are modes set up so that you can, once you have an open access publication, you will be able to link to the underlying research data. And that, of course, is very valuable. And we could discuss that more maybe later. Finally, a couple of examples. One, first from a university in Sweden, Chalmers University of Technology, and I've tried to indicate the main points here. What they say is that all research published by Chalmers must be available in an open access archive. And they have such an archive themselves, and that could be also, I mean, this could be established at any university. We have a collaboration in Sweden where several universities share this type of archive. So all researchers must then submit a full text copy into this archive and refer to where it is published somewhere else than if it is published somewhere else in a regular journal. And the only way to get an exception for this is to actually go to the first vice president of the university. So it's very, very sort of tough to get an exception. From a funding agency point of view, the Swedish Research Council said already 2010 that research funded by the Swedish Research Council should be published open access. At that point, they didn't really say what it meant, but they do now. So if you go to the web page at the bottom here, you will find these instructions. From this year, you can only report back to the Research Council when you're applying for a next grant, for example, those publications that are published open access. So you cannot count a non-open access publication in your list of publications. And from 2017, the plan is that all research funded by the Swedish Research Council should be published under a certain type of license, CC-BY. We talked a little bit about licensing earlier, which basically means that all the results, everything, data, publications, methods, everything should be free for use for others and reuse by everybody. And well, this hasn't happened yet. I don't think the Swedish research community, they are probably not fully aware about the effects of this, but this is what they still write at their homepage. Finally then, just to note that Sweden is not the best country here, definitely. Finland is the leading country in the Nordic countries. So there we have both activities that are bottom-up and a politicians-led initiative from the ministry where they say that Finland should be leading in openness in science and research by 2017. And here again, use of research results outside academy is the driving factor. Finland is in a recession. They want to get more output out of their research investments. They have a sequence of implementation projects. They have a roadmap, an open science roadmap, again talking about all of this, publications, data, methods, software, everything. And they also definitely stress the role of research as the foundation of knowledge and know-how, also outside academia. I think I'm done. Well, I could show you something about Nordforsk, but I will not do that. Maybe if it is interesting later, I can do it later. Fine.
Tack.